now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin here at home, of course, as the presidency yesterday acknowledged that the country was passing through difficult times, but said it was not insensitive to the challenges the citizens were experiencing. It said the President Bola Tinubu government was making a conscious effort to address the country's economic problems and improve the lives of citizens. Mentioning existing collaborations between the federal and state governments to alleviate the hardship in the land, the presidency also highlighted steps being taken to address food insecurity in the country. Presidential spokesperson Mr. Sunday Dare made the assertions in a long statement titled "Critique Requires Fact-Driven Narratives," a response to Daily Trust editorial. The presidential media aide pointed out that many of the government's policies currently facing criticism were precisely those designed to secure a more stable, prosperous future for Nigerians. He cautioned against misrepresentations, selective projections, and alarmist narratives, emphasizing that such distortions hinder public understanding and detract from ongoing progress taking place across the country. And now to issues pertaining to education. There was outrage after the West African Examinations Council denied candidates access to its results portal for the 2025 West African Senior School Certificate Examination for school candidates following technical glitches. A statement by the head of Public Affairs WAEC National Office, Moyosola Adeshina, revealed that the council identified bugs in its results system following a post-release review of the 2025 WASCI results, which led to the access denial. The council said access to the result checker portal had been temporarily suspended, urging candidates who had previously checked their results to recheck from Friday for the updated versions. While defending its serialization method for mathematics, English, language, biology, and economics, WAEC admitted that the post-release quality checks exposed technical glitches in its back-end systems. Also, the Federal Ministry of Education on Thursday confirmed that it has resolved the technical issue and used the opportunity to announce a key reform initiative. That's the phased introduction of computer-based testing, CBT, by both WAEC and NECO, beginning with the objective components of exams for November 2026. And now lastly, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Management, Festus Keyamo, yesterday directed the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, to place Fuji star Wasiu Ayinde, also known as K1 the Ultimate, on a no-fly list. The minister, in a statement issued via his X handle, said he had received reports from all the relevant aviation agencies regarding the altercation between the staff and crew of ValueJet and Ayinde at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on Tuesday, August 7, 2025. He noted that he had also received video footage of the incident. Minister Keyamo explained that from all the details he received so far, his preliminary impression was that it was a case of temporary loss of sanity and control on both sides, which could have led to serious fatalities. He added, and I quote, "Contrary to what the agents of K1 have said, he constantly moved his position on the tarmac to actually block the aircraft from taxiing to take position on the runway for takeoff." Meanwhile, the NCAA has officially petitioned the Attorney General of the Federation and the Inspector General of Police to launch a thorough investigation into the incident involving the musician and the domestic airline. Well, I remember yesterday, Rufai, you were advocating for, for videos, yes, for whatever people, bystanders could have, recorded with their phones. So videos came out.
And it showed that obviously lots of people listen and watch Arise News. And videos came out, and I was shell-shocked at what I saw. So, like yesterday, I was positive what Dr. Rumfeld said, from known to unknown. So what do I know today? Now I know that there was a flask because I saw it in the video. In fact, it was a gold-colored flask. I know there was a flask. The content in the flask, I don't know. Secondly, I know that K1 had an altercation with people around the plane. And while the pilot was trying to taxi the plane, K1 kept on moving in front of the plane. That's wrong. 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 Who do you think you are, mister? Who do you think you are? To stay in front of a plane. You were provoking the pilot deliberately. It's wrong because it didn't go your way. You didn't get on board the plane. You didn't listen to their rules and regulation. You were deplaned. Then you stood in front of the plane. The plane will not go. Is this Mushin bus stop? No, it's a tarmac. Totally wrong. The pilot too was also wrong. Whatever the case might be, out of provocation, you hold people's lives in your hands. Despite the fact that you people were there, you attempted to move, that they had to dock under the plane. That was equally wrong. But from what I saw yesterday, it doesn't put K1 in any glory. And please, the assertion is spokesperson is trying to push that because the owner of the jet, the airline called him and everything. No. The owner of the jet will normally try to placate things. Does not mean that you were totally right, because the owner of the jet was not there. I'm sure if he saw this video, he will not be happy with K1. So it is totally wrong. So all the aspersions they cast on K1 yesterday, I totally support it. What he did was totally wrong, and I'm happy versus Keyamo have put his big stick on the ground. They're going to investigate. In fact, NCAA said they've petitioned the Attorney General of the Federation. They've petitioned all those necessary. They've put him on a no-fly list for 6 months. Nobody should pick him up. I don't know if that applies to private jets, but even private jet operators too should watch it. We must not condone such a thing in the country. What is bad is bad. It has no more than one name. It's bad. So I condemn Kwam1 this morning. Secondly, as regards Mr. Sunday Dare reacting, you see, I would like to beg this government. We don't sit here and just love to criticize. We criticize because things are not well. And because we're also suffering too. And I'm sure you that are responding to that, article written by the Daily Trust, you are also feeling the pinch. So, Mr. Sunday Dare, in a bit of trying to react to an article, posited nothing in the end. You said Daily Trust, you were reacting to a UNICEF report, prediction that people will be now malnourished, more people will have to need food, 30 million people. You said you brought about scheme with fertilizer and everything. Can you also give us the outcome of those schemes you brought about? You see, that was just like what we were asking Dr. Zoma that came here the other day. That's okay, give us the empirical facts of what you have put in. You see, there's something called garbage in, garbage out. If you put thousands of fertilizer bags in for farmers and you help farmers, there must be an end result. So what was the end result as a result of that? And how did that help cushion the effects of poverty? So people cannot, you can't say people should not talk when they are feeling the pangs of hunger. You talked about people being malnourished after COVID. They are trying the best. They are doing school feeding program. Has it stopped people being malnourished? Because people like UNICEF and these NGOs are the ones on the field. They are the ones that are giving people pellets to cure hunger. There are kids that are being malnourished in parts of the north. Is it because we don't bring out the videos and show every time? Mr. Sunday Dare, you were also reacting. You felt offended because they say the Naira is worthless. The Naira is worthless now as we speak. Should I give you the empirical facts? When our journalists went to Côte d'Ivoire for the World Cup, do you know, because most of them had not gone to West African countries in a while, they were surprised of how worthless the Naira was to the CFA. The same CFA that the Naira used to worth more than before. There used to be, in fact, there was someone that was telling me a running joke that one Alhaji in the 90s promised a lady 1 million. So he didn't tell her the currency. So in the end, he said he promised the lady 1 million CFA. So they were laughing because 1 million CFA was 16,000 Naira. Today, CFA is going to 2 times the Naira. You want another fact that Naira is worthless? The Naira is undervalued. A currency that is undervalued definitely has lost a lot of its worth. The other day, Prof was here, and we're talking about the fair value of Naira. If you use purchasing power parity, PPP parameter, it's supposed to be around 500 or 600 to the dollar. If you use ref parameter, it's supposed to be about over 1,000 to the dollar. Today is 1,005 something. So, and that also passes through inflationary positions into our currency. It's undervalued. So a currency that is undervalued, When you look in relative terms, the naira is not as what it used to worth before. And people are complaining. We want this country to do well. That's why we talk every time. And please, it's best you people in government to listen. When you do well, when we see the fact, we'll report it and celebrate. We are all Nigerians. We are all in this together.
The most basic thing in aviation is security, is safety. I think it was shocking yesterday that we had the news that King Wasiu Ayinde Marshal Anifuoshe, popularly known as Kwam1, found himself in a situation whereby he had to be engaging the flight authorities with regard to the fact that he was carrying a plastic container, which they said was containing liquid above the limit. The nature of that liquid, even Keyamo, the Minister of Aviation himself, says it doesn't matter. But rules are rules. Now, he refused to drop that flask. He insisted on carrying it onto the flight. That led into an altercation with the pilot, the captain of the flight, who said that flask must be dropped. He refused. The pilot insisted on his being ejected from the flight, upon which he decided to go and stand in front of the aircraft to say that the aircraft would not move. And the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development has provided video evidence to that effect, that he was trying to obstruct the flight. What Festus Keyamo, the minister, described as a hostage situation. So one, according to aviation rules, safety is important. No person who is flying has the right to jeopardize the interest, the safety, the security of the aircraft itself, and also of all passengers and crew members on board. Two, the minister went a step further to say, however, if the passenger misbehaves in this manner, the pilot also should not have said, oh, I will run the flight, and then you have a passenger running and blocking up and down. And that in itself is something that is totally unacceptable, as Festus Keyamo put it. So this is the background. Now, how was the matter treated? The pilot was now placed on suspension. Our license was suspended. And then Keyamo came in after reviewing the evidence provided by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and said, no, both parties are wrong. Captain Oluranti Ogoyi has no right to say she will fly while there was a passenger standing in front trying to hold the flight hostage, and in fact, by extension, trying to commit suicide. And that the other party should also be punished. And it is on the basis of that that the minister directed that Kwam1 should be placed on a no-flight suspension for 6 months. So, having established the background and the facts of the case, my opinion is that the minister acted well by preventing a situation whereby the big man syndrome prevailed, because it was the pilot that was first sanctioned, saying we are suspending your license. The minister now said, no, the passenger also behaved very badly. You know, in this country, we have what is called the big man syndrome. If you are a big man, you can get away with anything. The same Kwam1 who was fighting at the airport would not have done that in the US. He would not have done it in the UK. In fact, he would have been arrested on the spot and thrown into detention for sabotaging and posing a threat to the lives of other passengers and for blocking aviation operations. So Nigerians first have to learn the lesson about big manism. ValueJet is owned by an Ijebu man. Now, Kwam1 is the Olori Omoba Akile Ijebu, you know, a very prominent Ijebu chieftain. He should realize that the Ijebu kingdom does not exist, does not extend to the Murtala Mohammed Airport.
Why are you bringing the
No, that's an empirical fact.
No, I take exception.
No, it's an empirical fact.
It
does not extend. This is federal government territory. You don't go there and overrule federal authority because you are a chieftain of a kingdom within the sovereignty of Nigeria. The third point is that some people have also read, gender relations into it. A Kwam1 saying, I'm a big man, who the hell are you? Pilot. But you see, that's the space of the pilot. And that's why I think that Rontilicious, as she's otherwise called, she also be protected. She's a pilot. She has a right to say, I don't want to carry this passenger. I think that's part of our ICAO rules. So it's Kwam1 trying to overrule ICAO regulations. But what is important at the end of the day is that, the Ministry of Aviation, NCAA, they've said they are going to investigate, and investigations are ongoing. And whatever they come out with, there's nobody that is above the laws of Nigeria. Whether you are a bosom friend of the president or the Olori Omo Akile Jebu or whatever, that's irrelevant. When it comes to aviation, where security is very important. And I think that people should speak of for Mrs. Oluranti Ogoyi, who became a full captain in 2021 and who has had experience in this regard. Her husband is even also a pilot. So all the investigations, you look at the circumstances that prevailed. But I know that in Nigeria, they try to bury things. So Keyamo has shown courage. He must not chicken out, even if he receives pressure from the villa. What is that other matter about Tinubu not being indifferent to difficulties that people are facing? I think the big point made by Sunday Dari, the advisor to the president, is simply that the media should not be biased. It's simply that the media should not misinform people. And they provided evidence to say there may be difficulties, but we must put it in context of the fact that this government is working. But his concern was that, look, the Daily Trust editorial was saying that Nigeria is facing a lot of hunger, government is not doing anything, and all that. All of us must watch out for the danger of extremism, whereby you see only one side of the coin and you condemn it. We know there is hunger in the land. We know there is hardship in the land. We know that people in certain situations, like the people who are in internally displaced camps, consider themselves helpless, even hopeless. But the media is also a stabilizing force in society. And it has taken on the Daily Trust. I believe that the editors, the managers of the Daily Trust, they have the capacity to say, well, either we stand by our story or we apologize. Although Sunday Dari said Daily Trust has had to apologize to the Tinubu administration twice in the past. So it's on both sides. A reaction to the media, not just Daily Trust, but to everybody in that space about bias and misinformation, but also a challenge to the Tinubu administration to know that there are people, because an editorial these days is not written by just a ghost. Editorials are written by informed persons, saying that there is poverty in the land, there is helplessness in the land, there is hunger in the land. The primary responsibility of the administration, whether it's Tinubu or any other person, is to address those challenges and to provide proof that we are addressing these challenges, and this is the outcome. Input, output, outcome. Some people will use the phrase in economic impact analysis, impact. We need to see the impact so that more Nigerians will not complain. As for WAEC is talking about technical glitches in the result, particularly relating to English, mathematics, and I think 3 other subjects. Now, they have admitted, after parents protested, that the result for this year's 2025 result is the worst in almost a decade. I think, WAEC has done well by saying we will look into it. But technical glitches will not help us in this country, whether in elections or in WAEC results. In WAEC results especially, because what you are dealing with is the future of children. No matter what the innovation is that WAEC is introducing, the integrity of that school-end examination is very important. And something must be done about ensuring the integrity of that examination. Even the Federal Ministry of Education has admitted that integrity of examination results is important. Although the same WAEC arrogantly said that those who have failed, but they will see what corrections they can make. When they make that correction, we'll be here again to assess the outcome.
Absolutely. And I think we can't emphasize the point that integrity, credibility is very important. It's key, it's central. Because now the question is going to be asked, are these new results still credible? What it does, it creates an element of doubt in the system. Now, some of the reports coming out are also saying that it wasn't just this technical glitch, that the entire process was difficult, that children were not supported enough, that some were in flooded venues, that this migration to computer-based testing is difficult with epileptic power supply. There were so many issues around. However, the major thing here, the major takeaway with regards to the sitting of exams itself, especially if we're insisting that we want to follow where the world is going with going digital and using technology, then it's extremely important for us to also embrace the culture of doing pilot tests, of doing soft runs of these things. I'm not sure why we're skipping this stage, whether it be with JAM, now we're seeing it again with WAEC, even as far as elections, like Dr. Bati has said, we're skipping the process of doing pilot projects and soft testing and running our systems before, because we have to remember that even if your system is relatively perfect, Nigeria is unique in that our population is massive. So sometimes unexpected hindrances, unexpected things happen in the system. So I can't overemphasize that part of the process. Those who are involved in technology understand it. So I'm surprised that we cut corners when it comes to the places in society that matter the most, because anybody who is in the tech industry, who's launching just any basic app that does anything simple, knows that there is a pilot stage. It's called?
Beta testing.
Beta testing, exactly. So I'm not sure why we're cutting corners on that particular part of the process. Now I quickly go to issues that pertain to us as the Fourth Estate. And I go as far back as the 18th century, because it was Edmund Burke who actually came up with the term called the Fourth Estate. How did it come about? It's because in those days, in the UK parliamentary system, journalists were actually prohibited from reporting on parliamentary debates. So the first estate were the clergymen. The second estate were the nobility. And the third estate were the commoners, represented by the House of Commons. But there was a growing culture where journalists were now being allowed into parliamentary debates and were now allowed to report widely on what was happening in Parliament. And because of this growing influence on public opinion, that's when Edmund Burke pointed to the gallery where the journalists sit and said, "There lies the Fourth Estate." Why am I bringing this to light? I'm bringing this to light because journalism has evolved over the years. So in the 18th century, around that time, especially in Europe, you'll find that journalism was just about reporting government notices. It was just about, it was almost an administrative exercise. It was not an exercise that embodied the values of being a watchdog, embodied the values of accountability, embodied the values of ensuring that the public is enlightened and that the public good is advocated for and protected. Now, I read the article by the Daily Trust called "Nigerians Are Hungry." In fact, this morning, Daily Trust have republished that article. And I read it quite a few times because I was looking for the bias. Because throughout the article, there were several times in which the Daily Trust actually referred to government interventions. For example, the Daily Trust referred to the suspension of VAT and said that, yes, this has actually resulted in some form of impact, but that yet there's still a serious crisis with regards to affordability of food specifically. They spoke about the school feeding programs with light to malnutrition nutrition and getting children into school. And they said, yes, this has been done. However, in many places, it's fizzling out. They spoke about interest rates and said that, yes, the private sector have been advocating for the reduction of interest rates because they too are also struggling with regards to accessing capital at the high cost and how it's being passed down to the consumer. And then they even made recommendations, and they said, well, they recommend that if possible, the government needs to release some grain as soon as possible because more palliatives are required. All in all, the article in itself, yes, as much as it painted some harsh truths, it also did acknowledge a number of government interventions. Now, we need to be careful when doing, the work of government enlightenment, if I may call it that, not to start to intimidate the press. It's very important because if anybody reads that article called Nigerians Are Hungry by Daily Trust, I don't think that there's inherent bias because everything that was said was supported by facts, and it was also balanced in that they also spoke of government interventions and even went as far as saying the state governments also need to do more at the subnational level. So I think it's very important that we continue to protect the fourth estate and that we stand together with an esprit de corps, because in this particular instance, yes, there was reference to some other incidents, but in this particular instance, I've read the article and I honestly don't see anything worthy of causing any uproar about and any long write-ups. Yes, the government should continue to educate us and enlighten us about their interventions. You can never over-communicate policies. However, the press should also stand firm in reporting the truth and should always ensure that there is fairness and balance in doing so. Now,
just one detail about scholarship. Edmund Burke, talking about fourth estate of the realm, that was in 1749, in the 18th century, English Parliament. The basis for freedom of expression was established by John Milton in the Areopagitica in 1644. So, it even dates much back. But there's always this tension between freedom of speech, freedom of expression, accountability, and government all over the world. The worst ones being the totalitarian, authoritarian administrations, whether the Soviet Union or Trump's United States.
Donald Trump is always catching stray bullets. I believe, I'm not sure if our time is up, but very quickly, I think yesterday we spent a lot of time on the issue concerning Kwam1, and I'm glad that sober minds are prevailing in this. Yesterday, we continue to say that we can't over-sanitize our aviation sector, especially the domestic domestic leg of it. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing swift intervention, and we've seen consequences for bad behavior. And my only plea is that, when we had another incident with a high-profile individual, there was controversy around the release of CCTV. Thank goodness there were enough citizen videos to go around in this incident. However, I think it's time for some sort of an independent CCTV in the airports so that these incidents also have a CCTV recording that doesn't get, shall I say, withheld, or we don't hear stories of fan telling us that, oh, there's no CCTV video available of this incident.